Well, it's a big day today, especially for the average BMW aficionado, if you will, for the average BMW prospective owner, because today we're going to take a closer look at the BMW X3 in its new generation, the G45. So this is the 4th generation BMW X3, and it comes to fill in some pretty big shoes because the X3 was a pretty big seller for BMW. Not the biggest seller, that still goes to the 3 Series, and the second best seller is the X5, surprisingly maybe to some, but the X3 comes in hot at number 3, and sales of the model have been dwindling in the past year or so, year and a half if you will, because it was starting to show its age, especially compared to its rivals, namely the GLC, the XC60, and recently Audi also unveiled the new Q5. But the X3 is here now, and we're going to talk about it today in great length. So what is it? It is a medium-sized SUV in Europe and a small-sized SUV in the US, and it comes with a completely new design, some new features, new engines, new drivetrains, and so on. But if you ask me, I am guessing this is built on the same platform as the F25, the previous generation. And I'm saying that looking at the technical specs of the car. Yes, it did grow in size compared to the previous generation. It's 34 millimeters long, 29 millimeters wider. It has a wider track, but if you look at the wheelbase, there's just 1 extra millimeter in there, and that tells it all, because you cannot fake the wheelbase when it comes to platforms. So this is built on the Clar platform that has been around for quite some time now, but that's not a bad thing. It is a platform meant for cars with longitudinally mounted engines. It's a rear-wheel drive platform at its core, and it did deliver a number of very impressive models so far. But this will be the last time the X3 will be built on this platform, because it is moving to the Neue Klasse platform, and we will get an electric version in about 2 years, according to BMW. That's going to be very interesting, because BMW says the new platform will have everything it needs to be competitive, and it will be a dedicated electric platform on 800 volts, and it will have a lot of new kit. In terms of design, I'm seeing a lot of evolution on this car, not exactly a revolution, except for some key areas. So up front we have a very clean design, and overall the car does look like a monolith. Every single shape has been toned down, everything is very streamlined in order to make it more efficient and to have less aerodynamic drag. So up front we have new kidney grills, and unlike on other models where they seem to be a bit exaggerated, I think they have the perfect size on this car. We do have the M Sport package on it, so the front end will look a bit more aggressive, but unlike on previous generation models, I don't see the difference to be huge, except for maybe the kidney grills. The shape of the kidney grills is exactly the same no matter which model you go for, but the insides of the grills will look different depending on the one you go for. We have the M Performance, or the M model, in the range right now, and this one comes with horizontal bars inside the kidney grills, whereas every single other model without the M Sport package has a combination of vertical and diagonal bars inside that kidney grill. The highlight of the kidney grill, if you will, is the fact that you can now buy it with Iconic Glow. Iconic Glow is that feature that lights up the surrounds of the kidney grill, and I think it actually looks pretty good. Now we also have to talk about the front in terms of headlights, because BMW decided recently to drop its Corona ring design, and I think that's a mistake, but maybe that's just me. We do have a new design on this model with 2 lines that double as daytime running lights and as signal lights whenever you use them, turn lights. All cars will be fitted with LEDs for the lighting technology, but I would have preferred some Corona rings up there, and I would have preferred the headlamps to be a bit wider, exactly where they meet with the kidney grills. This car also has the M Sport Pro package, which brings the shadow line headlamps. Basically that means they have a darker shade inside them, the M Sport Pro package also comes with shadow line trims all around the car, blacked out side mirrors, and red brake calipers. If it's worth the money, you can tell me in the comments section below. From the sides, you will notice that it did increase in size, as I said, by 34 millimeters, but it is a very clean look. You will also notice that on the M models, like the one we're driving today, you have new mirror covers that do resemble those on pure M models, and you will have a number of different wheel sizes to choose from and wheel designs. The wheel size varies from 18 inches to 21 inches. We have the winter setup over here on this car, even though it left the factory on 21-inch wheels, but I think they look pretty good, and I think this is the perfect size for the X3. If you go for the 21s, you will sacrifice some of the comfort you feel inside. We're going to talk about that when we drive the car later down the road. Around the back, we do have a new design, but I think it's more of an evolution of the previous generation than a revolution. The shape overall is similar to the previous model. We do have LED lighting in the back, but what I want to point out over there is the fact that on this model, the M50, we have quad tailpipes, which is something that is completely forgotten on any other model in the range. This is the only one that gets real tailpipes at the back, and 4 of them, just like M models used to get in the past. All other models will only get some trims on the lower side of the rear bumper, and they do not get the diffuser we have on this car. And even though it may seem like it's a white car, it's not. It's dressed up in a color called Dune Gray, so it is a gray. If you see it in person, you will notice that, but on camera it might seem like this is a white car. Now the boot has 570 liters on this model, but if you go for the plug-in hybrid version, you will only get 460 liters of space in there, because the car needs more room for batteries and electronics and so on. Once you fold the rear seats, which can be split 40-20-40, you get 1,700 liters of space, and if you go for the plug-in hybrid, that drops to 1,600 liters. So pretty big in that regard. Now let's hop inside and check out what's new in there. Now let's see what this car brings. Let's check the door sound. Pretty good. I'm gonna have to move the seat a bit forward because I had it in a backwards position to film the front end for my different channel, my second channel. But let's hop in the back. Let's check the build quality first. So we don't have the usual plastic on this door card because it has been replaced by a textile finish, and I actually like this because it does feel a lot better to the touch compared to any kind of plastic you will find on the door cards of many of its rivals. It does resemble the material used on the Mini Countryman that I presented on the channel a while back. We do have these blinds for the rear doors. That's not important. And we do have leather over here. So overall, pretty good material quality. Over here, we do have some cheaper plastic, and it does feel a lot cheaper than usual. But it's okay overall. You don't really need that much in this area or that area over there where you have some storage space as well. I like the way they integrated the door opener over here in this area, and this is the rear passengers space and the rear bench. It is wrapped in Veganza leather, which is a synthetic leather. It does feel nice to the touch, and I will be curious to see how it withstands the test of time. It's something a lot of manufacturers are using to drop their CO2 emissions on the production chain. There is some room in the back for passengers over 6 feet tall. I am just about 6 feet tall, so this is how I fit in the back, whereas the front seat has been adjusted in my comfortable driving position. So enough room overall. And headroom is also more than decent on this car. We do have the panoramic sunroof over here, and that's something we have to talk about because BMW decided to stop offering the traditional moonroof on these models. Why? Well, I'm guessing because of coast cutting. So the only thing you can get is this transparent roof, glass roof, but it won't be opening in any way. That's sad to see, actually, because I can understand BMW wanting to be a bit more efficient with its costs, with its production costs, but after all, this car is in no way, shape, or form cheaper than before. We're going to talk about this later on. We also get in standard configuration a 3-zone climate control system. This is the panel for the rear seats. It actually looks pretty good. We do have 2 USB-C charging points over there. The car does get 4 USB-C charging ports as standard, and these are the vents for the rear occupants. And that's the new dashboard and the new front end, the new front cabin, half of the cabin for the new X3. And it does look like any other BMW in the range. I actually like the fact that the exterior design is very separated between the models in the BMW range these days, but I don't like the fact that every single one of them looks the same inside. There are some key differences though. For example, the X3 does get this area over here. You won't find it in any other BMW model today. And it's actually quite interesting to look at. These are ambient lights. They are combined with the interior lights. And this is the door opener, and this is a very interesting area. You can adjust the air vents using this slider over here. It's not working right now because the car is off. These are buttons for opening and closing the car. You have the X3 logo over here and memory seats. So yeah, quite interesting how they did all of this. The materials are exactly the same as in the back, so we have this textile finish. This is made out of recycled plastics, by the way, the same leather over here, and we do have an improvement in this area in terms of materials used, but this is still cheaper plastic, and these are the door bins. So these are the front seats wrapped in the same leather. I'm gonna drive the seat a bit further back so I can show you the dashboard a bit better. The seats are very comfortable and they offer a lot of side support, so that's pretty good, I guess. And we are inside the car. This is the M Sport steering wheel with the red guiding ring over here at the top of the steering wheel. Flat bottom. I think it looks pretty good. I know some people don't like flat bottoms on the steering wheel, but I'm okay with it. I'm okay with this trim over here as well. And we do have paddle shifters behind it, and they actually feel pretty nice to the touch. We have a classic turn stock over there and one for the wipers, and this is the central console. We don't have the crafted clarity option ticked on over here, but this still looks pretty good and feels nice to the touch. You can activate the parking cameras over here and some other features of the car, volume button and the traditional shortcuts over here. And this is a huge storage space for your phone, so manufacturers are adapting to our needs. This has actually induction charging and this area doesn't, but you do have 2 USB-C charging ports over here, as I told you, and this is an M logo over here. I think it looks pretty good, and 2 cup holders. Now let's start the car. So as you can see, BMW changed the interior lighting design. I think it looks pretty good, and it has certain animations as you go through different driving modes. You can actually configure your own. You can have expressive mode, silent mode. Actually, let's take a look at the modes over here. So you get all of these modes if you have the digital premium option installed, which basically brings you access to paid apps and certain features inside the car. All cars come with a SIM card on board for your internet connectivity needs, and as you can see, my phone just automatically connected through Android Auto to the car. But you can also get access to Apple CarPlay. This is the shortcut menu over here for all of your most used features. You can configure it in a number of ways. You have another shortcut over here at the top of the screen, and this is iDrive 9. We also have an instrument cluster I already showed you before. This one also changes depending on the driving mode you're in. For example, if you go into sport mode, it looks like this, but you can also change it manually. Let's go back into personal mode, and you can change the content, you can change the layout, and you can also change the head-up display, information showed, depending on what you prefer. So quite an interesting setup overall. I like the build quality, I like the materials used, and I like the fact that this screen is integrated a lot better into the general dashboard layout than on other models in the range. We also have a selfie camera over here. I don't know who cares about that. Oh yeah, and also you can play games inside the car with L console. I don't know who cares about that. We do have a connected store, connected drive store, and yeah, that's about it. Now let's talk engine choices. Well, the range is made up of 2-liter petrol engines for now, and if you live in Europe, you also have a diesel. Since I'm making this video in English, I'm going to talk about the choices you have in most of the world, let's call it that. So in Europe, we have the BMW X3 20. That's the name, by the way, because the naming scheme has changed. BMW no longer uses the I letter in the naming of the petrol-powered models because the I letter will be apparently saved for electric models. So the name is now BMW X3 20. So that uses a 2-liter petrol engine under the hood. It's a mild hybrid that's going to develop 208 horsepower. Then there's the BMW X320D. On the diesel engines, the D has been kept. So that's a 2-liter mild hybrid engine with 197 horsepower diesel. And then there's the plug-in hybrid, the BMW X330E. That also uses a 2-liter petrol engine along with a more powerful electric motor also integrated in the transmission that has a total of 299 horsepower and an electric range estimated at between 80 and 90 kilometers, which is pretty good. The only downside of the plug-in hybrid is the fact that it can only be recharged using a maximum of 11 kilowatts, whereas most of its rivals already have fast charging capabilities. Even Volkswagen has fast charging capabilities on its plug-in hybrid models. And then there's this, the BMW X3 M50, which is basically the only M model in the range, the one we're driving today, with a 3-liter straight-six turbocharged engine under the hood, the B50 B30 M2, to be more precise, because the B58 did have a number of different variations over the years and improvements. It's a mild hybrid, and it has 398 horsepower and 580 Newton meters of torque. Now, you might notice that all of these engines are mild hybrid, and the way BMW did it is actually quite simple. They changed the gearbox, they electrified it. Basically, all cars come with the same ZF 8-speed gearbox, but they now have an electric motor inside them, good for about 18 horsepower and 200 Newton meters of torque. And this way, BMW electrified all of its models. Now, if you live in the US, you will probably also have instead of the 2-liter diesel, you will get the BMW X330, which has a 2-liter petrol engine under the hood, but with 255 horsepower. And in the US, the mild hybrid setup is basically just using an ISG, integrated starter generator. It's not the same setup as over here in Europe. But today we are driving the top-of-the-range BMW X3 M50, and I have some bad news for you. If you're waiting for a pure M model, that's not going to be offered. BMW dropped it, like it dropped a number of options on these cars and a number of features. For example, you cannot get gesture control anymore, you cannot get laser lights and so on, a lot of coast cutting. And the X3 M will not be offered anymore. BMW said it didn't sell enough volume of it to justify being made available later down the line. So this is the most powerful and the fastest model you can get. It will do 100 kilometers an hour from standstill in 4.6 seconds, and it will reach a top speed of 250 kilometers an hour. It's a fast car. It's a really fast car, and I'm guessing for most people 400 horsepower will be enough for most of their needs. You don't really need more power. Moreover, this B58 engine has been proven to be quite tunable because it has closed deck cooling. The entire lubrication system has been improved. The cooling system has been improved. We now have dual injection on this engine, basically both direct and indirect injection to make sure the issue that plagued direct injection engines over the years doesn't happen. You probably already know that direct injection engines have an issue with valve carbon deposits, and that's basically not going to happen here because the car uses both types of injection. It uses a Miller cycle. So this engine has been proved to be able to reach over 500 horsepower with some simple tunes like a new intake, a new exhaust, a new ECU tune, and you can squeeze a lot of power out of it. It's not as punchy as the S58 you would find in an X3 M, because that one has 2 turbos and it has better throttle response. But now that this engine has been hybridized, the throttle response, I have noticed, is absolutely instantaneous, and I actually love that about it. And the gearbox is right there with you, no matter the driving mode, excepting the efficient mode. In every single driving mode, the gearbox will be right there with you, and it is a joy to drive this car. And it's not even as stiff as you would imagine a car with an M badge on the boot. It's actually quite comfortable overall, and I was surprised to see that. We're talking about a double wishbone setup up front and a 5-link setup in the back, so it's a comfortable ride. It's not the most comfortable because the M50 model does get a specific suspension tune. It's a bit lower than, let's say, an X320 with the M Sport package. This one sits a bit lower. The suspension is overall a bit stiffer, and even though we do have the adaptive suspension on this car, as far as I know, it has been tuned to be a bit on the stiffer side of things anyway. So basically, in normal mode, this one feels like the normal, let's say an M Sport model feels in sport mode. So when you enter sport mode in the M50, things get a bit worse in terms of comfort, if that makes any sense. But it does get a lot better in terms of sportiness, body control, anti-roll, and so on. So overall, this is a setup I could live with overall. It's a setup that I think most people will find very comfortable on a day-to-day basis. It's a setup that I think won't cause any back pain, because I drove it for quite some time during my time with this car, and it proved to be quite comfortable overall. And I love the fact that the suspension doesn't make any weird noises. It's very well isolated from the inside, and that could be a good or a bad thing depending on which side of the barricade you're sitting on, because this car is very well sound insulated, but it does isolate you from the sound of the engine overall. So whenever you enter sport mode, you do hear it a bit more because there are some flaps in the exhaust that open up, but most of the sound you will hear inside comes from the speakers. Let's switch to sport mode. You can actually notice that the sound comes from the speakers, not from the tailpipes. So it's not unnatural. I've seen a lot worse on cars with more power and more sporty pedigree pretensions, but overall I think this car does really well, both in terms of driving and in terms of delivering some emotion to your fingertips. And I actually like the way it drives. It's quite brilliant. It can oversteer if you want it to, because these models do get the M Sport rear diff included in the overall package. That's a locking differential on the rear axle, and it does make a big difference. You do have all-wheel drive, so whenever you're driving it in a faster manner, so let's say you enter a corner, it feels neutral because of the way the weight is distributed over the two axles. It feels rather neutral, but if you want to make it slide with the rear axle, you can actually do that. And it's quite interesting how the weight shifts whenever you're driving it in a faster fashion, because you can actually feel the weight moving around the car, and you can actually feel what it's doing. So it's one of the very few cars you can still buy today that can allow you to feel that. Most cars are actually very numb in that regard, and they feel very artificial. Not this one. Of course, compared to the previous generation, it will feel more digitalized, more less analog. But considering the era we live in and the cars this car competes with, I think it does a very good job at giving you some thrills. But let's say you don't want to get the BMW X3 M50. Let's say you just want to buy a regular X3. That's going to be a bit more comfortable, a lot cheaper, because the price hike for the M50 is quite honestly very, very high. And you're going to have a very relaxed atmosphere inside. Let's switch back to, let's say, expressive mode. So what happens is, whenever you switch back from sport mode, where the car actually almost loses its mind, you get a very refined car overall. Quite spacious, very comfortable, very good build quality. I think this makes the BMW X3 a very good car to keep in mind if you're looking for such a premium option. Of course, we cannot talk about the X3 unless we talk about it in comparison to its rivals, and those rivals include the BMW. Those rivals include the Audi Q5 that was newly unveiled. I didn't get to test drive it yet, but I'm hoping to do so soon. Those include the GLC and the Volvo XC60, to name a few, but these are the most important rivals this car has. Now, I did drive the GLC, and the GLC felt a lot more comfortable because the GLC does come with air suspension. However, whenever you want to drive it in a sportier way, in a sportier fashion, the GLC does fall apart. It cannot hold a candle to this car. It's even heavier, even though this is a 2-ton car now. It is heavier, and overall, I think it feels a bit more refined whenever you want to drive it as a luxury cruiser. But whenever you want to have fun, the BMW still takes the win. The XC60 is bound to get a new model this year, but that's a very capable car too, and it is a bit more spacious inside. Yeah, it's a tough choice, but I think the BMW X3 still remains the most fun car in this segment by quite a long shot. However, pricing did change for the new X3, and the new car is a bit more expensive right now. So over here in Europe, prices start at 57,000 euros for the base model, the petrol 20. If you want to get the diesel, that's going to be 1,700 euros more. If you want to get the plug-in hybrid, that's going to be 66,000 euros starting price. And if you want to get the M50, that's going to start at 80,000 euros, 80,000 and some change. The car we're driving today is 97,000 euros because it has some additional optional features on board, like the assisted driving features that will keep you on the lane, and even change lane for you now because the system has evolved. You do get adaptive LED headlamps, which are optional. They're not standard. On this car, you do get LED lighting as standard, but not adaptive. You do have the Harman Kardon package on this car, the exterior color, the wheels, the 21-inch wheels the car was configured with added a bit more cost. So it does have some options added on top, and that's going to cost a pretty penny. So 97,000 euros. Now, that's expensive. Now, mind you, this is supposed to be the BMW X3 M replacement car. The X3 M started at about 90,000. So, yeah, this is not exactly a purebred M like the previous generation had. But that also had some downfalls. For example, I found the suspension of the previous generation X3 M to be atrocious, especially in competition, guys, the model I tested. This is a lot more comfortable and a lot more down to earth. But I am quite interested to see what you guys think about it. Whether you would buy the X3, the GLC, or maybe the XC60 or the Q5. We're still waiting to test drive the new Q5. Let me know what your choice would be and what you think about this car. And until next time, of course, don't forget to feed your passions. Ciao.